everybody. I'm Lisa Shield.
And I'm Benjamin Shield.
And we thank you for joining us. We love doing these broadcasts, and we so appreciate you taking the time. Today, we're going to talk about the need for constant reassurance in relationships. And I think this is a huge issue, especially for women. And men do it too. We have a client who was recently dating a man who needed constant reassurance, and she could tell that he had an anxious attachment style, and he would make all of these self-deprecating remarks, asking, why would a beautiful woman like you want to date a guy like me, and things like that. And it was so unattractive. She really actually liked him, but she found his comments pretty off-putting, and after the second date, she decided that she didn't want to date him anymore. Well, women do this probably more than men do because men have a need for autonomy and space, and most men are not looking for constant reassurance from women. They may need it in some ways, but not in the same way that women do it. And the problem with reassurance and trying to get a man to constantly reassure you is that it actually does the opposite. It pushes a man away.
Yeah. If a man feels that it's obligatory that he constantly reassures the woman, it's almost as if he becomes on the defensive, that he is always on guard to make sure that he's reassuring the woman. Otherwise, there may be withdrawal from the woman, coldness, or a fight will ensue. So instead of it coming from his heart, spontaneously, he has to do it out of obligation.
And then it just really takes a toll because, number one, I think it's in the nature of a man not to want to do something out of obligation. Yeah. Many, many, many men resent feeling manipulated or controlled by a woman. And a lot of women may not feel that that's what they're doing, but it really does put a man in a position where he feels like he's walking on eggshells.
Right. And if a man forgets to, if a woman is used to getting a text every morning saying, "Hi, beautiful," and they settle into a relationship, he may miss a morning. It can create, it's like a crack in a diamond sometimes, that it starts out small and over a period of 3 days, that crack just grows and it's silence and bad feelings. And the man feels defensive. And I was in a relationship once, an unfortunate one, but I've learned from it, where I know that I had said, "I'm sorry," more than I said, "I love you," because I was always on the defensive, always having to apologize for not reassuring. And one begins to resent reassuring when one has to, and it's just not part of one's natural frequency.
Yeah, I remember that feeling. I remember once on my birthday, I got dressed up and we were going out and you didn't say I looked beautiful. And some things had led up to that. It wasn't, and it's so rare for you not to tell me when I come out and we're dressed up and we're going out to dinner or we're doing something. As a woman, just speaking as a woman, I know how vulnerable I felt when I came out and I was dressed up and you hadn't said, "You look beautiful." And I know how women feel. You're expecting that look of surprise or that smile or that, "Oh my God, you look wonderful," and then it doesn't come. You just sink, and it's almost harder because it's been there, and you come to expect it. So when it's not there in that moment, you start to implode almost, and it does bring all of those insecurities for a woman rushing to the surface.
Yeah, and I think women assume that men are verbal as they are. And, some men, if they saw a beautiful woman coming out, dressed beautifully for the evening, would think to themselves, "Wow, she looks hot, she looks great," and then take her out for a wonderful evening. So the words may not be coming out, the thought is there. And I know the women needs to hear it.
Well, and I think it's also, just to speak for women, it's the consistency of having somebody do that. And then when it's not there, like with the texts, right? Mm-hmm. It's like every morning a man is consistent. And instead of the woman saying to herself, oh gosh, he probably was rushing out of the house for work, or maybe, he got distracted and just forgot and he'll text me, later in the day or whatever. Immediately it's like, oh my God, he didn't text. Mm-hmm. Something's wrong. And then we start to catastrophize.
Yeah. And then something that could have been a beautiful day with each other, it starts at a deficit. Mm-hmm. Or it starts with an accusation followed by an apology, followed by distance.
Or even, she just may reach out and say, well, you didn't text me this morning. Is everything okay? Mm-hmm. And I think a man would hear, you didn't text me this morning.
Mm-hmm. Or you didn't text me, is everything okay? May mean, were you doing something more important than, texting me?
Or she may be suspicious,
exactly.
Right? Maybe she's thinking, oh, well, maybe he had another woman there. Mm. Or, he couldn't text me because, and there's some suspicion of something nefarious. Mm. And then a man may pick up on that and he feels accused, and then he starts to feel guilty or shamed or whatever, when all he did was run out of the house because he was late for work that morning, and he had to get to the office for a big meeting, or maybe he had something on his mind that was really important. It's so important for women to realize, to really think about the fact that men are truly one-track minded. It's not like these things that we hear are not just theories, they're reality. Mm-hmm. A man may be, especially in the beginning of the relationship when he's courting a woman, he's going to be meticulous about sending those good morning or good night texts. But once he starts to feel a little more comfortable in the relationship, what he wants to do is actually relax a little bit and not feel like he has to do those things, like they're not obligatory.
Yeah, and part of those things that a man needs, particularly as a relationship settles in, is space, is time and space to himself. And some women don't allow that because they feel insecure that, he'd rather be doing something else than being with me. Or what is he doing in those spare times? I don't even know what he's doing, during that time that he's not with me. I want to know. And a man often just needs to have time and space to integrate, to catch up with the day or let the day catch up with him, and do nothing more than, watch a basketball game with two teams he's not interested in, just because it takes his mind off the day and it gives him time to himself. And I think men in general fear that when they get into a relationship, they will no longer have that time to themselves that they had as a bachelor. Mm-hmm. And that their life will be less than. A woman could make a man feel guilty about taking that time, and the man will feel apologetic and defensive and, force himself to be with a woman and not totally be there, which can create another line of anger and fighting and distancing, because he's not getting what he needs, and the woman realizes he's not totally there, present, with her. So, but for a woman to effusively say, you're such a man, and I know men, and I know that men need their time and space, and I will do everything I can to support that. When we talk about in the course, finding the guardian of your soul, that is something a guardian of one's soul, of another soul would do. That if someone needs time and space to have a balanced life and a balanced mind and a balanced love life, that the woman would not just say, all right, well, why don't, you need 3 hours or you need the whole evening? Instead of that, saying, please, I so support you doing that. I want you to be happy. Take the time you need. And, a man, we did that recently.
Right.
And
With a client.
with a client.
In our mastermind
I
group.
think she had called on a Sunday and said, what do I do? I know he has this evening free. It may have been a Sunday evening. And this is the advice I gave her of just not just saying, okay, I understand, but saying, I'm so glad you're taking this time. I want you to be the best, have the best life you could possibly have. And I'm here to support that. And I may not remember the exact words, but he had called back and thanked her profusely and said, tomorrow night, I'm going to get lobster, I'm going to get scallops, and they had the most wonderful, evening the next night.
Well, and he also said, and we're going to have our first sleepover.
Right.
So that was amazing that they had, that she created that space. And she called me up and she said, Lisa, I can't believe it. Not only was he excited, but it was like he said, and then I'm going to get lobster and I'm going to get onions and this and that. And then we'll have our first sleepover. She was so excited. And it was actually the opposite. It worked in reverse. By giving him space, he actually, was able to need less space because he saw that she was the kind of woman who could let him have a night to himself and not suffocate him, which made him want to come closer to her.
Yeah. And 20 years ago, when, we moved in together, I knew I needed time and space, and I was afraid that I couldn't get it. So in my treatment room, I'm a physical type of a manual therapist. Lisa had, put in a microwave, a refrigerator, cable TV. And because she offered this to me, as my man cave, I didn't need it because I knew that whenever I needed that time and space, all I had to do was ask for it. I didn't have to fight for it. I didn't have to create a separate environment. And, and in these past 2 decades, sometimes in my Los Angeles practice where I was seeing at least 8 people a day and putting in about an 11-hour day at least. And sometimes, I would hear stories, and very seldom happy stories, and one can't really integrate it at the moment.
Right.
So I would need time at the end of the day, which usually looked like me standing over the sink, staring off into space, eating grapes or something. And for letting me catch up with the day and the day to catch up with me. And you would come around the corner in the kitchen, take one look at me and do 180, just saying, Ben needs a space. And, it created a safety for me that I didn't have to explain myself. I didn't have to fight for what I needed. I didn't have to check in on what your needs were at the moment. You were the guardian of my soul. You said, this is what Benjamin needs. And so...
Yeah. And I do that even when we're sitting across from each other at dinner and I can see that the conversation is too much or you're done. And I don't take it personally when I see your eyes glaze over or like last night.
Oh, we were talking politics and...
the end of the world.
The end of the world. So I think that having this beautiful French dinner and talking about that were antithetical. So, but I knew that if I just closed my eyes and you would pick up of what I needed. We do that when we're driving also, like sometimes driving, one can get lost in thought and interesting thought and creative thought and being interrupted, with another person. So sometimes I'll just put my hand on your thigh and you'll say, Ben is thinking.
Well, it's true. And I know sometimes when you would finish work or when you do finish work, you'll say, "You want to go out to dinner?" And I can look in your eyes and just see how tired you are and that you really are just doing it for me. You think I need to be aired out because I'm in my office working all day.
That's the term I use.
Yeah. And I'll just look at you and I'll know that it's probably, you're just being thoughtful and you're thinking about me, but you need a night at home. One of the things I notice with women is that they want to go and do and do and go. They've 5 million things and whatever. And they put this in the profiles.
Yeah, and spontaneity.
Yeah. Oh, I'm spontaneous and I want to go here and I love to be active and do this and do that and whatever. Well, first of all, being active for a woman is very different than being active for a man. Yeah. A man may want to go and do certain kinds of things. Sure, there are some guys that are incredibly social and love partying and going and hanging out with friend group, groups of friends and things like that. But there are a lot of men who want to know that they can just come home after a long day at work and just chill and have time alone and not have to constantly be walking on eggshells around a woman, wondering if he's giving her enough attention or saying or doing the right things, but just being able to just be and have space to be.
Yeah, and especially if they had plans and he's perhaps had a hard day or hard week or just not feeling up to it. Yeah, that it's not going to create this crack in the diamond that's going to last 3 days of silence and ill feelings.
Or a guilt trip for not going. Yeah. I mean, with you and me, if something comes up and one of us isn't feeling up to it, the other one will just go.
Yeah.
And we'll do things, and it's like, oh my God, stay home. We're so much more concerned about one another's well-being. One thing that I know women do, honey, it's almost like they're looking for an opportunity, right, for a man to mess up so they can get him on a short leash and then they can control him like he's in the doghouse. I don't think a lot of women would admit that, but they're so quick, to take an incident and make a mountain out of a molehill. And then that guy is now walking on eggshells because he forgot to send that good morning text, or he forgot, God forbid. I mean, things happen, but people forget events or birthdays or whatever. You marked my birthday, I think, on your our anniversary.
Right.
On your calendar.
Yeah. And I took 3 days off for anniversary, and my best friend had called, who I'd written the books with, and said, he canceled a trip because he had to go to New York for a publishing event. And he said, "Is there any other time?" I said, "Richard, this is weird. There are 3 days blocked out of my calendar. This is a miracle. I can't even imagine why I blocked them out, And, he said, "I'm going to make reservations. I'm going to make I'm going to get a great room. I'm getting my airline flights." And about 20 minutes later, I just stopped in my tracks. I remember the reason I had 3 days marked out was because it was our anniversary. And you said, what did you say?
I just said, go be with Richard. We're going to have lots of anniversaries.
Yeah. And that was, I think, the second to the last time the last time I traveled with him, because he passed away on an airline.
Yeah, shortly after that.
Yeah. So, it was a miracle.
Yeah.
Those things are endearing. It's not like, oh, she did this, now I owe this to her. it's like she did this and now our relationship is even bigger.
Yeah. I mean, I saw opportunities like that. I realized when I was dating that I didn't want to be like other women. And I looked at the things that I found unattractive about female behavior, that I thought these things really must be unattractive to men. And I thought, in every moment, I have an opportunity to show this man how I'm different from other women, how I'm compassionate and understanding and forgiving, and I'm a loving, kind communicator, and I instead of using those instances to punish men, I tried to show a man and demonstrate my kindness, my forgiveness, and all. Now, it's very important for women to understand that you never want to be a doormat. So when I was being kind and compassionate and understanding, I was not being a doormat. I was really giving a man an opportunity to see my heart.
Yeah.
But I also knew that if it kept happening, if this was an ongoing thing, then I would end it. I wouldn't stay in something if I felt that a man was being unkind or abusive or taking advantage in any way. So, it's an incredible kind of clarity that we can be kind and compassionate and forgiving and also have very clear boundaries and standards for what we're willing to accept in a partnership, which is why I wound up with such an incredible partner. I think, on our very first date, we've talked about it many times, and I don't want to go too deeply into the story, but when you were running late and I got on the phone and I said,
that first date.
Yeah, and I just said, look, I'm just sitting here enjoying myself. Take all the time you need, and I'll be here when you get here. And that was, again, and it worked because you thought, oh my God, who is this woman, right? And it really worked. And it was intentional. That was not superfluous. It was intentional what I said there. And I ripped off Eckhart Tolle. I was reading The Power of Now, and I said, I'm sitting here enjoying myself. Ironically, I'm going to digress. My middle name is Joy, and your mother's name is Joy. But that was intentional. I wanted any man who was going to come into my world to see that I was fine. I was happy. I was content. I was forgiving. I was understanding. And I didn't want a man walking on eggshells with me. But I do think women, we've seen this, with women going through the course where a man will do one thing and then suddenly they've got him over a barrel and now they're going to hold him on a short leash, and that man is going to feel suffocated.
And when a man feels suffocated, he will do just the opposite of what the woman wants. He will seek relationships, male or female, where he feels just the opposite of being suffocated, where there's a certain freedom and joy, and where he doesn't have to be apologetic.
Yeah. One of the kiss of death in a relationship is when a man says, I don't think I can make you happy.
Right.
Where, he's saying, I'm sorry more than he says, I love you. And he's constantly feeling like he's walking on eggshells and that nothing he does is good enough and that he's always having to look over his shoulder. And there's no peace in a relationship like that. And the woman is constantly angry and looking because her insecurity is driving her. And we talked about, where does that insecurity come from?
Well, it can come from past deception, where someone's radar is so strong because they're just looking for anything that reminded them of a past bad relationship.
or parenting or childhood or whatever, and they're projecting that onto a man. So when you get triggered and something comes up, it is so important to take a deep breath and look inside and say, what's getting triggered inside of me? What old wounds? What is coming up? What is this behavior triggering? And I'm going to assert that you don't need to go to the guy and have a conversation with him about it. You can take a deep breath. You can say, okay, I'm projecting, or this is triggering my fear of abandonment or intimacy, or the time my mother did this, or my father, or my ex. But you don't need to go to the guy and say, when you did that, it triggered my old abandonment wounds. And, that's why I got so upset and whatever. You can take, a mature, emotionally intelligent adult can talk to a friend about it. You can go and journal if you feel you need to process. But the less you can take that to a man and a partner, the more open, the more free, the more spacious that relationship will feel.
Yeah. And a corollary of that is taking things personally. Just recognizing, we're all going to take things personally. But the important thing is recognizing it when we do and when it's our stuff, and that it may not have a lot to do with the situation or the other person.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about how can a woman ask for reassurance in a healthy way? How can she do that, babe?
Well, one way would let's say a gentleman had canceled several dates, and it was devastating because she was looking forward to each date, and for him it's very possible that the nature of his work, that he may have just been handed a bunch of folders on his desk and say, we need this by tomorrow morning. We don't know. We don't know if someone has been ill,
right?
Or whatever, someone has come into town, or whatever it may be, that a woman could simply say, reflect back, I noticed that you've canceled the last, 3 dates. And, I just wanted to check in with you to see if there's anything going on, in your life that you wanted to share, or anything going on with us. Rather than saying, I can't believe you've canceled, I feel hurt. I take this very personally. And, if you cancel another date, that's it. Where the guy, may really be crazy about her. And, I have had good reasons. It could have just been one of those things. But the woman did not see the best in that man, and, so she was looking for why this, turned south.
Right. And I think another thing is not to catastrophize and start to take these instances. For women, we get so easily triggered, and then we spiral into, he's pulling away, he's avoidant. This is, there's a shift in his behavior, and he's no longer, I think this is the beginning of the end. And then they come in to a conversation with all of that on their minds. And they literally do. They get it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. They push the guy away.
Yeah.
And so often this happens. I think so many relationships end for reasons that they wouldn't have ended if there had been a healthy, loving, emotionally naked conversation where the woman just says, I wanted to check in with you and see, is there something going on in your life, or is there something with us that you may want to share with me? I know you've been a little more distant than usual. You've canceled several dates. It's okay that you needed to do that, but I was just curious if this is something with us, or is this just that you're overwhelmed in your personal life? And I'd love to have a conversation about that. You know, so that would bring two people closer together rather than further apart.
Yeah. Yeah.
And another thing is that it is so important as women to respect a man's right to have his private space and his private time. One of the things that comes up so often is women just want more and more and more and more and more. It's never enough, never enough. And, you know, if they see a man twice a week, they want to see him 4 times a week. If they see him 4 times a week, they want to see him 7 times a week. If he's going away for a work trip, it's like, well, he's got the night free before he leaves, and I can't believe he didn't want to spend that with me. And is it okay for me to call him and say, if you're free tomorrow night, I'd love to see you before you leave on your trip, rather than thinking, well, maybe he needs to get himself together or he's going to be away.
Right. And we've known women in the group, in our basic group, who don't have much time themselves during the week. They have obligations. They may only have 2 free nights a week, and they see the man two nights a week, but they begin to resent that the guy, you know, that they're not seeing him more, even though they don't have time themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, this idea, I just remember so many times where women have said, well, I know he's not doing anything. Why didn't he call me? I know he's free that night. He could have just called me and asked me out or wanted to spend time with me. I don't understand why he didn't do that. Can I just call him? Or maybe, I mean, sometimes people need a night alone. And one of the problems, I think, I don't know, but there's an energy with some, you know, with some people that's women. I see it a lot. We're talking to women primarily here. This is called getting inside the male mind. So we're trying to give the male perspective. So for anybody who feels like it's always, well, why do the women have to change? And why is it always us? If we were having a conversation with men, it would be the exact reverse conversation. We would be saying, she wants you. She wants to spend time. She needs connection. Is it possible to take that into consideration, knowing that when she may seem desperate or she may seem needy, for you to take a deep breath and make room for her, knowing that women need more connection and more time together than most men do. So we would be having that same conversation with a man in reverse. So please know, we're not making it all a woman's fault. I just feel like I need to say that. But we are speaking to women, and your power lies in where you can make changes, where you can open your heart to this, you know, this amazing man and make room for him so that he can feel safe and comfortable with you. So you've got to start to respect a man's right to his private space and private time. And no, you can't ask him, you know, what do you do when you're not with me? Or, you know, he has a right to have his private space and time. And what he needs from you is to know that you trust him and that you respect that he needs time to himself. I mean, one of the problems with women is that a guy may just need to go diffuse. He may need to sit in front of a television and watch 2 Czechoslovakian tennis players that he's never heard of, you know, hit a ball back and forth and zone out and not have anybody there saying, well, what do you want to do for dinner? And what time are you going to be ready to leave? And whatever. He just needs to be alone with himself. And he's not always talking to another woman or getting online and, you know, and getting on Bumble and right swiping. he's probably very likely zoned out in front of the television,
Decompressing.
decompressing and just needing to do nothing with no one. So it's important. I know you've had men lie to you and cheat on you and do all kinds of nefarious things, but there are wonderful men, wonderful, kind, loving, thoughtful men who just need time and space and privacy. And the women who know this and can respect them and respect their need for distance and space and time, the more you can do that, the closer he will come. So that's one of the ironies of all of this. The good men, when you give them space and time, like our friend with the lobster dinner and the sleepover, you will draw a man closer to you. All right. Well, this has been Getting Inside the Right Male Mind. I'm Lisa Shield.
And I'm Benjamin Shield.
And we thank you so much for joining us. Please tell everybody you know about our podcast. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts. You can also see the entire list of podcasts on my website. And you would go to lisashield.com/podcast, and that will take you right to my website. Please check out the website. It's a beautiful site, and there's lots and lots of information about the work we do. Benjamin and I have a beautiful transformational course. It is 12 weeks long. It is called Emotionally Naked Dating. If you want to find the guardian of your soul, please go to the website and check it out. Also, go and give a thumbs up for my YouTube channel. And finally, I think that's it. Oh, if you want to send any suggestions to us, please send them to podcast@lisashield.com. The name of my podcast is Dating Without Drama, and I do 2 episodes a week. So please check them out. I do 1 episode by myself, and then I do this one with Benjamin. Thank you so much for joining us. It means the world to us that you spend your time listening. Take care and come back again.